Hello, so welcome back to this channel. If you're already a subscriber, you'll notice that I've not been posting videos regularly on this channel. The reason is because I've been working on a very comprehensive course on Xamarin, which covers a lot of topics that not everybody likes to talk about, but I promise you it's going to be taking you from the basics of not knowing anything at all about Xamarin and even C#, and it's going to transform you into a complete developer. That's on the side, but in this particular video we are going to be talking about Firestore. So what is Firestore? Firestore is a new NoSQL database that was released by Google. Before now, we only had access to the real-time databases, which saves our data in a very large JSON tree. But Firestore is actually adopting a new approach in NoSQL and how data is being saved. So Firestore saves data in documents and collection. So you might be asking, what are the collections for and what are the documents for? If you're very used to relational databases like MySQL, you already know that data is being saved in tables and rows. The same applies, not exactly, but very close to Firestore. The collections, you can think of it like your table, and the documents, you can think of it like rows in your table. And you know that in relational databases, each row will have a primary key or an ID. So is our document. The document will always have a unique identity, a unique ID. You can set your own ID, or you can allow the Firestore database to produce an auto ID for you. So data is being saved in hierarchy. When you have your collections, you can now have multiple documents saved under a collection. But now the beautiful thing is that inside of your document, you can still have another collection that will also have a lot of other documents saved under it. I think that's actually what makes it a NoSQL database. So enough of the explanation. It's best that we go into it and make use of it and see how we can save data to it, retrieve data, delete and update, and also listen to snapshot, because this is a real-time database, guys. So let's just jump right into it and do something. Okay, so I also want to mention that we are not going to be focusing much on the UI. We just want to see how we can do CRUD operations with Firebase Firestore. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. This is Visual Studio 2019. It's pretty cool and it's very nice and sleek, as you can see. If you're yet to upgrade, I will advise you do that, but it doesn't still harm you, and whichever version you're using, provided it works well for you, that's really fine. So we're going to go ahead and create an Android app. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on create. So we're going to make this a blank app. So our project is well created. So these are the templates that Visual Studio 2019 comes with. So whenever you create a new project, the first thing you probably might want to do would be to build it or ensure that you're connected online to ensure that all the dependencies that the new Visual Studio comes with is well installed. So the first thing we need to do will be to edit our layout. We need to add some edit text to take some input and save to our Firestore, our Firebase Cloud Firestore database. So I'm going to go to my Solutions Explorer. I'm going to load this activity. So this is my main layout. I'm going to go ahead and customize this. Like I mentioned earlier on, guys, we're not going to be focusing much on the UI. We just want to get our app to the level where we can save things to our Cloud Firestore. So I'm going to change this to linear layout. Okay, so this will be linear layout as well. I'm going to set the orientation. I'm going to define an edit text, match parent, and the height will be wrap content. I'm going to call the save data to Firestore. I'm going to set the gravity to center. And we're going to give our linear layout some padding. So now the next thing we need to do will be to define 4 edit tests. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and define the first edit test. We're going to set the ID. We're going to call this full name test. So this needs to have some margin to the top. I'm going to set this to 10 dp. So now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and create order for edit test. Okay, boom. So we have that ready. Now lastly, we need to add a button to our linear layout so that when we click on the button, we'll be able to save the information we have in the editors to our database. So we're going to define a new button. So our layout design is ready. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go to our main activity and get the reference to all the editors and this button that we have in our main layout. Okay, so we're going to go back to our main activity. So these are things that we're already very familiar with, so I'm going to be really quick with it. Okay, so now we have declarations of new editors and buttons. All right, so the next thing we need to do will be to reference these declarations to the ones we have in our main layout. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to put all of this in a method. We're going to call this method connect views. So full name test will be equal to, as usual guys, you're already very used to this. So we're going to have find view by ID, resource.id dot full name test. So guys, this is one of the issues that Visual Studio 2019 is having. Most of the time it doesn't, point directly to the resources even when they are there. You always get an error until you build your project. You possibly might be having this red sign under some of your resources, but don't worry about that. Just go ahead and continue. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing for our email, phone, and age test. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we have all the references ready. So I'm going to go ahead and call this method in our onCreate method. All right. So I only did that just to ensure that we keep things really organized. All right. Boom. So this is ready. So now guys, the real business of the day. We need to add Cloud Firestore, Firebase Cloud Firestore to our project. Now the first thing we need to do will be to edit our package name. To do that, I'm going to go to our Firestore project properties. We're going to edit our package name to something that we really want. Okay, so I want to change this to, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And we're going to copy it. Okay, so we're going to be using it just right away. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go to Firebase console. So I'm already on Firebase console. So to access Firebase console, you just need to have a Gmail account and you're going to log on to console.firebase.google.com. So the next thing we need to do will be to create a new project. So we can call that Firestore project. You can call it any name. It mustn't be Firestore project, okay? So you can go ahead and tick this if you want to or not. So let's go ahead and click on create. Okay, so we are ready to rock and roll. So this is our Firebase dashboard. The first thing we need to do will be to add an app to our project. As you can see, this is Android, so click on Android. Now we're going to paste our package name. So click on register app. So our app has been registered. The next thing we need to do will be to download Google services.json. So we're going to download it. So it's downloaded. Now we're going to click on next. So this is all we need to do. Let's click on skip this step. So next thing will be to go hit on database. So there are two databases here. We can actually use Cloud Firestore or real-time databases, but for the purpose of this particular tutorial, we're focused on Cloud Firestore. So we're going to go ahead and click on create database. We're going to start in a test mode. In a test mode means that anybody can write and read from the database, but this is just a very good place to start to ensure that everything works well. So we're going to go ahead and enable that. Boom. So guys, our Cloud Firestore is ready. Like I mentioned earlier, I said that data is being saved in collections and documents. So as you can see, it's asking us to add our first collection. So our first collection could be, say, users, which is actually what is going to be added. So we're going to add a new item, a new user to our users collection. Okay. So this is just an auto ID. So we're going to have a name. Say the name is Ufinix. And we can add more fields under this particular ID or under this particular user. All right. This ID represents a single user, right? So we have the name, we can have the gender, We can have the age. So we can go ahead and click on save. Okay, so this is exactly what happens. As you can see, we have users as a collection, and we have under documents, we have this document which contains these fields. All right, so in this particular document, which is this that ends with arrow-b, if you wanted, you can go ahead and add extra fields to it, or you can also go ahead and add new documents or new users to our users collection. So this is basically how Cloud Firestore works. But we need to jump right into our app and see how we can work with Cloud Firestore from our app. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this document. As you can see, we still have our collection, so let's just go ahead and delete it. So we're going to impute users. So our collection has been deleted. So guys, let's jump right into our Visual Studio and get cracking, right? So in our Visual Studio, now that we've created the Firestore project, the next thing we need to do will be to download the SDKs, right? So we're going to go to Solution Explorer. I'm going to right click on the project title, and we're going to click on Manage Nugget Package. So we're going to go to Browse. We're going to browse for Xamarin Firestore. Okay, so this is the Nugget package we're looking for. So let's go ahead and install this. So it's coming with a lot of other dependencies, which is fine. So let's go ahead and accept it, accept the licenses. Our Nugget package was successfully installed. Now there is one more Nugget package we'll need to install for our Firebase Firestore to work. If we omit it, then our Firestore won't actually work. So this particular Nugget package is called xamarin.google.guava. Okay, so this is the one we're looking for. We're going to go ahead and install it as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and accept the licenses. So the Nugget package was successfully installed. Now we're going to close our Nugget package manager. We're going to return to our main activity. Okay, seems to have a problem here. So let's just go ahead and fix that. I didn't define this ID in my XML. Okay, should be age test. So the next thing we need to do will be to start working with our Firestore. Now, the first step to doing that will be to bring in the Google Services.json file we just downloaded. So I'm going to go and click on Add Existing Item. I'm going to find the file in my downloads. So this is it. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add. So the Google Services.json file has been successfully added. So I'm going to load it up. So guys, I also want to bring something very important to your notice. As at the time this video is being produced, Firestore is actually having issues initializing using the Google Services.json file. If you're already used to working with Firebase and some other important Google packages, you know that you're supposed to set the Google Services.json build action to Google Service JSON, right? But we are actually not going to be doing this in this particular project because we are working with Firestore. But we are actually going to be initializing the Cloud Firestore database manually. So with all this information we have here, we are going to successfully initialize our Firestore manually. In this way, you're very sure that your database will always be initialized at every point in time. So we're going to go back to our main activity and we're going to create a new method. This method, we're going to call this method getDatabase. So this is going to be public. So we have to ensure that all the support libraries are of the version of 28.001. Firebase Firestore. Okay, so this method, I'm going to call it getDatabase. Okay, so this will always return the instance of our Firebase Firestore anytime that we call on this method. All right. So we're supposed to reference this. Okay, so I think we managed to get it. The IntelliSense is now working. So in case you experience some kind of issues like this, your IntelliSense is not working, all you need to do will be to shut down your Visual Studio and restart it again. So let's go ahead and bring in these references. Okay, so we're going to write some code that will actually initialize our Firestore. So I'm going to say Firestore, Firebase Firestore. I'm going to call this database. So I'm going to say var options equal to new. I'm going to go ahead and set the project ID first of all. So to get our project ID, we're going to go into the Google services.json file we downloaded earlier on, and this is our project ID. We're going to copy it, go back to our main activity. We're going to paste this here. So the next will be set application ID, which is the same thing with our project ID. So the next thing we need to set will be our API key. We can also access that in the Google services.json file. This is our current key. We're going to copy it and make use of it as our API key. So we're going to paste this here. Now the next one will be to set our database URL. You can also find that in the Google services.json. Everything is actually in the Google services.json. We just need to be copying them. So we copied Firebase URL as our database URL. So we're going to paste it here. Now the next thing we need to grab will be our storage bucket, which is this. We're going to copy it. So we're going to paste our storage bucket here. We're going to say .build. Now the next thing we need to do will be to say var app will be equal to Firebase app dot initialize this, which is the context, and we're going to pass it our option. The options, that's the Firebase options we just declared, and this is all we need to do. And finally, our database will be equal to Firebase Firestore.getInstance from our app. So this will go ahead and retrieve an instance of our database. Now finally, we're going to go ahead and return the database. So this is actually how we are going to go about initializing our database. We actually want to call this method only once throughout our app, so we just have to define an instance of our Firebase database as a global variable. Okay, so here I'm going to define Firebase Firestore. I'm going to call this database. So here we're going to say database will be equal to get database. So this will go ahead and initialize our Firestore database and also return the instance to our database. So once we've done this, we are actually ready to start saving data to our Firebase Firestore. Alright, so to do that, we're going to first of all go ahead and add a click event handler to our save button. So guys, to create new document and save it to a collection on Firestore database, so we're going to make use of HashMap. If you have worked with real-time database before, definitely you must have heard of HashMap. HashMap is more like a key value object, just like a dictionary in C#. So we're going to be making use of it to save our data to our Firestore. So this will be equal to new HashMap. So the next thing we need to do will be to impute values in our HashMap. First thing first, we're going to put our full name. So where are we getting the value of full name from? We're going to get it from full name test. Guys, we're actually doing this way for the purpose of these tutorials. If you're actually working on a production app, it's always conventional that you use a string to grab the values of inputs in your edit test first of all, and also you can do some data validation because you don't want someone sending in an email address that doesn't have @ or something, right? You don't want someone to send in a wrong phone number and all those kind of things. So you possibly might want to do some data validation before you send it to your database. So all we are doing here is for the purpose of this particular tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and define. So we're going to go ahead and put our email, and we will be getting the value from email test.test. Now we'll do the same thing for our phone. So we get a value from phone test.test. And lastly, we're going to do the same thing for our age. Okay, so now we have our hash map ready. The next thing we need to do will be to actually go ahead and save it to our Firestore. So to do that, we're going to define a new document reference. So a document reference is more like a path to where we are going to save our document. Like I earlier explained, these fields here, full name, email, phone, and age, is going to be fields in the document that we're going to create, and the document is going to be under a collection. So we're going to create a document reference which will serve as a path to where we are going to save data. So this will be equal to database.collection. So here we're going to define a new collection. So this is at the point where we define our collection. So our collection is going to be users. Okay, so this is our document reference. By having this .document, it means that you want Firestore to automatically generate an ID for you. But eventually you want to set your own ID. You can do that by imputing a part inside of the document method. So let's say we want this to be our ID. So this is how it's supposed to appear. This is how our reference is supposed to appear. But we don't want to set the ID ourselves. We want Firestore to help us to do that. So we're going to keep our reference like this. And the next thing we need to do will be to say docref.set. And we're going to pass it our map. Boom. This is all we need to do to save data to our Firebase Firestore. Now, to verify that everything works appropriately, I'm going to go ahead and run this app. Okay, so our app is deployed. Boom. Okay, so I'm going to pull up our Firebase database. So I'm going to pull up the app as well. So let's go ahead and provide some input to our app. So first, I'm going to impute the full name. So this is my full name, the email address, and the phone number, and the age. I'm not 12 years old, guys. So let's go ahead and hit save. Okay. Now let's go ahead and reload our Firebase database. For the first time when you add data, you actually need to reload it for it to show up. Okay. Boom. Users. And this is the information we just keyed in. So we can go ahead and impute more information. So let's delete this. Save Ufinix Academy. I'll have Ufinix at gmail.com. Hit save. As you can see, a new document was added. So we can keep going on and on, right? Can go ahead and click add. It keeps adding new information. So guys, this is how to actually save information to our Cloud Firestore. It's actually very straightforward, no brainer at all, straight to the point. So at the beginning it might be confusing, right? If you're coming from the real-time database, it might give you some issues understanding how it flows, but if you practice, you'll be able to understand it very quickly. So guys, this is just how to save information or save data to your Cloud Firestore. I hope you really learned something. So stick around, hit the subscribe button if you're not yet subscribed to the channel. The next videos that's going to be coming will feature how to retrieve your information from Cloud Firestore, and also how to update and delete your data. Thank you very much for sticking around and watching, and see you in the next video.